It's not buried under a toilet. He's alive. Part one.
Okay. Yeah. So let me know when you're rolling and we can get going.
Oh, all good. We're rolling.
Okay. So today we're addressing a lot of rumors, a lot of nonsense that people have been talking. A lot of people have been talking freely about His Majesty being dead and buried under a toilet. And, you know, this is a very sacred topic, right? So I want to give you a Rasta perspective, but then I also want to give you a historical perspective. And last but not least, an objective perspective, non biased, right? So uh, there's a person who posted a video, and the title says Haile Selassie was buried under a toilet, and I think people get comfortable talking about sacred things um, in ways where in which are not becoming, are not showing any form of reverence and or dignity. It's one thing to speak on a topic, and of course, most of us are going to speak from a perspective that we know or we feel we know. That being the case, that's why I said there should be three things that we should be striving to do as keepers of the light. The first is giving you a Rasta perspective, because the Rastaman concept, to me, the world wants to hear the historic perspective first. They want to hear the, uh, they want to hear the objective perspective first. But of course, they don't want to hear the Rasta perspective first. But I'm going to give you that first so that we can see if it falls in line with the other two perspectives. So when you look at His Imperial Majesty's case, it is not cut and dry. There's many nuances that has to go into play and consideration when you're talking about His Imperial Majesty and his supposed death and his supposed burial under a toilet. I say supposed, not naive or from a biased perspective. I say supposed because there are countless evidences and proofs that we can verify, that we can check out, that would, in a court of law, be substantiated as reasonable doubt. And this is why the case is so important and relevant today. Hold on a second. I'm going to try to get a little bit more lighting.
All right.
So, let me pull up a list of some of the background that I was able to pull up in regards to this this issue, and let's see if these are some valid points that we're bringing forward. First, I want to say, for the Rasta perspective, the Rastaman do the eyes homework. We use reason and overstanding for every situation, not understanding. The Western and the Babylonian hemisphere, they use an understanding. See, so that means they're gonna go with what they're presenting and what they're giving, surface level. Jay-Z said it best: do you listen to music or do you just skim through it? We have the perfect opportunity to dig a little deeper now so we can get an overstanding. See me, I say, right? When you dig, you look down upon. See me, I say. So we're going to dig and do some reasoning from a Rasta perspective. The Rasta man sees himself no different than the original Christian. And I say this to those that claim that Christianity is not a what we call cornerstone of the faith. I challenge you to say, if you feel the Bible is not the cornerstone of Rastafarianism or a prerequisite to be a Selassieite or to be involved or engaged with the true works of His Majesty, then listen to His Majesty's words himself. His Majesty spoken directly to the heart of Christianity. He was the head of the oldest Christian church on earth, the Oriental Tewahedo Church, with the oldest and most complete Bible on earth. And being the head of the church, he was also a very devout Christian. For those who want to disenfranchise Christianity, there are some that may say or refer you to other books. There are some that will refer you away from the Bible completely and desire for you to just look at history. I say to those in particular that that is not a way of Rastafari at all. Our foundation stone is the Word of God. His Imperial Majesty said from his own lips that the rallying point for mankind is the Bible and that he glories in it. So if you don't believe in the Bible, but he's telling you that he glories in it, then you don't believe in His Imperial Majesty. See, let's just keep it real. The truth is the truth. So I say that to say the concept of His Majesty's resurrection, which some may also suggest has happened, or the concept of His Majesty's divine identity, that means that He's liveth forevermore, or the concept that His Majesty is a king and emperor and in such was honest and good and righteous man. And so there's different concepts in Rastafari. Some believe His Majesty is divine. Others believe that His Majesty was a Mashiach or Messiah, leader of the people, and designated elect of God and fulfilled biblical prophecy. And there are some who just believe He was a man in flesh that was leading a people. All of those concepts are fine in Rastafari because every Rastafari is not going to see the divinity of His Imperial Majesty. We can get into those conversations on a later date as to whether or not that's valid or not. But I am not the judge. Only Almighty is the judge. For His Majesty teach us, no man should judge another man's faith, for no man knows the ways of Almighty. Therefore, we're looking at the concept of Rastafari from a Rastafari perspective. You can believe His Majesty is a great man and be a Rastafari. See me, I say. But to deny, just outright deny His greatness or His divinity is not Rastafari in no way, shape, or form. There are those that are posers. They grow dreads, they smoke the ganja, see me, I say, and maybe even live a Ital life, see me, I say. But when it comes to their devotion to teaching, admonishing, adhering to the words that His Imperial Majesty said, they finicky, they cherry pick, like the concept of the Bible not being important and paramount. When His Majesty say from His lips and testify of Christ as Christ testified of Him, that He will not say what He wants to say, He'll say what He's told. Therefore, Christ live in Him. That's why on the coronation they said, Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed is he who come in the name of the Lord. That's the prophecy that Jesus Christos, Jesus Christ, gave to us to signify His coming. That they will sing, and He said, verily I say unto you that you will not see me until they say, Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed is he who come in the name of the Lord. This what you call coronation is the wedding ceremony referenced in Revelations. That's the glory, that's the crown of Rastafari, is that we're not just historically, we're also biblically secure. There's two paradoxes here. There's some that have the historical accounts, but they cannot attest to the biblical accounts. And this disenfranchises them from what we call the divine right of kings, right? The divine right of kings means that God ordained a kingship on earth through David, that there would never lack a man to sit on King David's throne. See? The government shall be on his shoulders. See, he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, right? Prince of Peace. His Imperial Majesty fulfills these scriptures. And this is the Rasta man's point of view. And when you see that evolve to His Majesty's supposed burial under a table or under a toilet, this is where the Rasta man parallels with the followers of Christ, because the followers of Christ saw Christ ascend. They saw that with their own eyes. They testified to that in writing, right? And they built churches, which is also a testament to their legacy. So the faith has grown and become fruitful. So how is this paralleling with Christ and with His Majesty? Because in Christ's time, it was His disciples that saw Him ascend, which really means to climb. He was at the Mount of Olives, so He ascended the Mount of Olives, and His disciples bore witness to this account. It wasn't the whole world, right? The way the Western world tell the story, you would think the whole world watched Him float into the air. But if they understood African history and tradition and the pragmatism, they would understand that to ascend means to climb, and that He was at the Mount of Olives, right? So He ascended into heaven literally. That's why He said the ends of the earth, the Queen of the South will come from the ends of the earth, because she came to hear the wisdom of Solomon, and yet one greater than him is before you. Why would she have the right to judge the nations unless the Queen of the South had gained the wisdom of Solomon? And if she gained the wisdom of Solomon, why would God not pass it through a seed and an inheritance? And we see the continuity. So long story short, so I don't go too far off on the Rasta concept, but we see as Rasta, our faith is that His Imperial Majesty is either King, either God Almighty incarnate, or the Mashiach, the Messiah, anointed one, or all three, and the power of the Trinity, Haile Selassie the first. So what we would call ascension is not beyond our scope of thinking. It's very rational that His Majesty would ascend Debre Zeit, or the Mount of Olives in Ethiopia, right? Or that He would ascend the Jubilee Palace. It's very likely that He was taken to Daradawa instead of where many try to claim He was at, which is the Jubilee Palace, right? And if He was in a Jubilee Palace, they have a train there, train station. So could He have gotten out of there? It's well documented that His Majesty went without a fight. And this is the parallels with Christ as well. His Majesty, in the end, did not go and fight the people who were trying to take His government by force, although He had the power and might to fight, as He had shown throughout the course of His life and throughout the course of His governorship of the country and of the continent and of the world, really. It was His Majesty's oncoming generation, which He prophesied, that asks and demanded to be put into power in the heart of Ethiopia, thinking that they could manage power, thinking that they were ready. These were teenagers that His Majesty sent and educated, who came back now and felt they could take the reins of the country. So His Majesty's last words were, if you do good, my legacy will be forgotten. But if you do bad, your legacy will be forgotten and mine will be established. And this is clear 50 years later. The United Nations and the African Union are giving their just due to His Majesty. The African Union erecting his statue, giving him official recognition. The Ethiopian government participating with the royal family at this occasion signifies that His Majesty's time is coming again, and the Derg is doing exactly what he said, drifting away into nothingness, right? Into a stain on a perfect record in history. And it's a stain of their own doing. What I'm trying to say is that His Majesty knew what was going on. He knew there was a hostile takeover, and he stood stoically idly and allowed them to do this on purpose. And I think that there was more of a fatherly love involved. He understood that if he raised his sword, there would be bloodshed in the country, major bloodshed, and they had already been through enough wars. He also understood that this child that he trained, Miriam Mingitsu, who showed him the utmost respect, right? This interview from his grandson just came out. Prince Makonnen Haile Selassie, right, came out and did an interview about his father and about his majesty raising him 45 days after his father had passed. And so his majesty was basically his father. And this account and testimony about how his majesty um, was and his countenance and character, to me, signify that his majesty was an upright and righteous person. And now, if he was righteous, this means he had the spirit of the Lord in him. And I love how His Majesty drove that home when he gave his speech to the World Evangelical churches, where he was the special guest, and he was specially chosen to represent the church because there was no one else worthy to compete with him for the fruit they bore on behalf of the church, as His Majesty established over 2001 churches, as His Majesty gave the church autocephaly, as His Majesty unified the 5 churches who hadn't communicated in 1,500 years, the Melancholy Church or Melancholan Church, the Indian Church, the Syriatic Church, the Armenian Church, the Coptic Church, and the Ethiopian Church. When you do stuff like that, you know what I mean, and y'all telling me that he doesn't respect Christianity, or we don't, as Rasta, need Christianity, it's unbelievable, really. But nevertheless, so yeah, let me move and progress into the second, which I had mentioned, so we don't get too far off course. The second that I had mentioned, which is also important, is the historical perspective. Historically speaking, there are some things that I think should be considered and contemplated before you can jump to a conclusion as to whether or not His Imperial Majesty is dead. And if you cannot prove he's dead, this is what we have to do: is put him in what's called a missing persons category. So, here's some of the things that I had looked into a little bit earlier and ran across that I found fascinating. Number one, the DNA evidence in the case of Haile Selassie remains was considered inconclusive due to several factors. Deterioration of remains. Now think about this: 20 plus years or 17 years, the bones are sitting wherever they claim they are. They're corroding, and you're telling me you got an accurate DNA test? What's going on here? Right? Deterioration of the remains, the skeletal remains attributed to Haile Selassie, discovered in 1992 under a latrine in the former imperial palace, or supposedly discovered, had been buried for nearly 2 decades. Given the time elapsed and the conditions of burial, obtaining viable DNA samples would have been very difficult. Number 2, lack of confirmed comparative samples. To establish a conclusion DNA match, scientists would have needed a confirmed sample from a direct descendant of a well-preserved tissue sample of Haile Selassie himself. Right? If no definitive control sample was available, any results would be uncertain. Right? Number 3, political and religious sensitivities. The issue of Haile Selassie's remains was highly sensitive, especially among Ethiopian monarchs and monarchists and Rastafarian community. Any results that were inconclusive or disputed could have been subject to political and ideological interpretations. Now, that being the case, segue, think about this. The person that found his remains hated his guts. The TPL, or excuse me, before the TPLF, which y'all know now, there was Milizawi, I forget his full name. If you get a moment to look it up, you'll see that he took over after the Derg. And this movement was at odds with His Majesty's legacy, at enmity with His Majesty's legacy, and did everything he could to continue to hide His Majesty's legacy. That's why Ethiopians are screaming at the top of their lungs that they are a um, what you would say a rejected generation. Not to say that they're rejected by God or that they're rejected by His Majesty or by the West or anybody in the world. It's to say that they've been rejected from the education about their true history and about Haile Selassie the First, and that's by design. And so, when you have a person that's trying to consolidate power between the church and the state, and uh, the church has requirements that need to be met in order for there to be a smooth transition of power. Some of the requirements historically are well known and documented that in order to put another person in power, the emperor has to be proven dead within 2 days. Y'all took 17 years to claim you found a body. I think that's substantial and what we call reasonable doubt, as I mentioned before. So that's the historic rub of it. I'm gonna move on. Forensic limitations at the time. Uh, think about the time when they did this. It's not the 2025 that y'all know of where we doing ancestry.com. The forensic limitations at the time, the DNA testing methods available in the 1990s were not as advanced as they are today, making identification more challenging, especially with the graded samples. So, due to these factors, identification of Haile Selassie remained inconclusive, though they were officially reburied in a state funeral in 2000 at the Holy Trinity Cathedral in Addis Ababa. Some still question whether the remains truly belong to him. Now, if you will, pull up for me on YouTube before we conclude. That's the historical sector. I'll go into the final objective perspective, and after we segue into this YouTube video really quick. If you can, go to, I think I sent it to you. Let me check my messages real quick because it may be easier doing it this way. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, sure.
Did I happen to send you a video of a man at His Majesty's tomb who said that the measurements were off?
I don't see anything.
No, it's fine. Give me 1 second. I'm pretty sure I can pull it up in 1 sec. Can you send me the video of the man who said that Haile Selassie's body height was wrong? He's standing in front of his tomb in a documentary. You see how you do that? Just hit it, receive it works. Who knows? Oh man, he pulled it up real quick. The burial of Haile Selassie. Ooh, look at these people. Hold on, let me pull it up real quick.
Okay.
I just want to make sure this is the actual video. Maybe I should ask them at what time. Yeah, let me make it easy on myself. At what time does the footage start for this actual interview? The quote that he's quoted as saying, he said the coffin was 2 or 3 times bigger than the emperor himself, for Haile Selassie was tiny, barely 5 feet tall. That's coming from JohnRyle.com. Additionally, an article titled Burying the Emperor by John Ryle discusses aspects of Haile Selassie's burial, including observations about the size of his coffin relative to his stature. So that's another thing. They made a big statue, big tomb. Just fascinating because the man at the tomb talked about this previously too. So give me a second. Let me see if I sent it to Rambo. All right, hold on. See, this is why it's good to send Rambo a link. I just kind of got busy tonight, so we're kind of winging this. But we're almost done, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe, share, like, comment. You know what I mean? If you don't feel like what we're saying is genuine, go look it up. If we can't present the sources, leave it in the comments, and we'll see whether we cap or no cap. Everything that I'm saying, we've done some pretty thorough research on. So give thanks for that. One more second. Oh, you know what? I might have it actually in my phone. Is if I send it to you from my phone, would you be able to play it?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, let me see. I wonder. Okay, I wonder if it's an iJob. I think it's on iJob. Hold on. Give me 1 second.
Actually, if you're able to find the title, I could just type it in and pull it up on him.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it to you, but I gotta look for it. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So actually, just looking for the video itself. Let me see. I thought I had it handy, but unfortunately, I'm pretty sure, I was positive I sent this to the brother Rumble. Everything I get, I send over to my Hydra and them. I mean, 1 second. If I can't find it in about 3 or 4 minutes, I'll let you know and we'll just move on. Okay, this is what you do. Type in Rasta, Rastah, Pastor, Pastah, I think. Mm-hmm.
You said Rasta Pastor?
Yeah, the Rasta Pastor has a video. Haile Selassie. Just put Rasta Pastor Haile Selassie. And there it is right there. Look, they got the tomb right on the front of the video. So Rasta Pastor and then Haile Selassie.
Rasta Pastor UK is Haile Selassie the first still alive?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's done a great job compiling all of this. And I don't know if this is the video. Hold on, I'm kind of skimming through to see if this is the actual one. I think this might be elaborating more, getting more deep. This has the grandson's interview on here talking about him being alive and, you know, that they haven't proved he's dead, which he makes a very valid and good point. Michael McConan, rest in peace, who passed in a car accident. But then again, you just never know with these things. You know, I'll just leave it at that. Let me see. I know I've probably opened up another wormhole, but hey, I'm gonna just say that that's very random. He was in line for the throne, by the way. But let me see. Rasta Pastor here. Let me go to his channel because it's in one of these videos. Okay, part 1. I think it's in part 1. Let me see. You see part 1?
Yeah. Wait.
Mm-hmm.
Part 3 here.
Which is on base. Years old.
It says, why do Rastafari people call Haile Selassie the first Christ?
Yeah, it's the second one. It says part 2.
Well, it's a little more.
I think it's the second one that we're looking for.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. This is much more work than I thought it would be, bro. But this is a good video. Sheesh. Maybe it's part 3. Hold on.
Over 40? Here's why learning AI could be your best career move yet.
Lord, give me the strength, Lord.
Become the most dangerous person in the
I am tired. I will tell you that today. Let me be real with y'all. Genuine. Oh, here we go. I think this might be it. Let me see it. I know all the roster. They know. Y'all know. Y'all watching like, man, we know already. but that's okay. I'm see. Damn, man, I just want to see Buddy at the supposed tomb. Dang.
Holy Trinity is moving in Ethiopia.
Okay.
Because people have to know.
Well, either way, I pointed them to a really good video. That video. That sucks.
That wasn't it.
No. Okay, hold on. Give me one more second. I'm gonna try one more.
All right. Okay, I found it. Type in Haile Selassie, no dead, no buried. Nice. Finally found it. Sometimes you gotta wait, be patient, and push through your emotions to get to the goal. Sorry to hold y'all for a little bit longer. We may edit that out. I don't know. We'll see. Once we get to editing and all that. But let me know if you still need the name or you found it. Footsteps of Our Emperor Tour, Haile Selassie, no dead, no buried. Selassie Church Tour Guide. Okay, got it.
Found it? Okay, pull it up and
Right.
I'm back. I'm sorry, I didn't even see the screen all the time.
All good. Let's go ahead and share. And boom.
Yes, play this so they can see what we're saying about evidence. This man is giving you evidence, which is testimony, right? Two or more can substantiate a thing. First and foremost, those that believe in the Bible, these testimonies should be enough because you ain't never seen Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. You ain't never walked with them. You ain't broke bread with them, nothing. You ain't heard their voices. You just saw what they wrote on paper and had the Spirit of the Lord move you to believe and have faith. So have the same faith in this man who's an innocent bystander, pedestrian, and Ethiopian, risking his own, right? Is you taking a long risk here, but of being isolated and ostracized in Ethiopia because of your belief in His Majesty. But this man taking that risk. So let's hear what he got to say.
Is it?
Can't hear it, bro. You gotta learn. You gotta start it again and then turn it all the way up.
Yeah. I got it at the highest volume. So
Okay, go ahead, play it again. Let's see.
here, let me
Thank you.
turn on the captions. That should help.
Okay, cool.
Because the reason
Say it
is-
again. You don't believe Haile Selassie is buried here.
Because we don't believe Haile Selassie buried here. The reason is when they found the body under the toilet from his royal palace, they measured the body. So this body was 170 centimeters, but the height of Haile Selassie was 165. Yeah, and at that time, the communist leader, Prime Minister Mengistu, he sent him to Dredawa with Volkswagen car. And the people told us when he get to Dredawa, at that time, 1,000 people gathered and welcomed him in the 3 or within 5 days.
And that's why Mengistu started killing everybody.
Yeah.
So he's not.
Okay,
Yeah.
wait, play a little bit more. So he say so he's not there. I want to hear his answer real quick.
Okay. Let me run it back real quick.
No, right there's good.
So he's
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's difficult to say so, but yeah.
But he's also been cited in Ethiopia, His Imperial Majesty. And I know an Italian man who also saw him in the late 90s in Italy that said he was meeting with the Pope because the Pope was giving money to build back the roads in Ethiopia. And this man didn't know anything about Rasta believing about the divinity of Haile Selassie. And he told me, he said he saw him as very old, but he looked very good for his age. And the man was one of Mussolini's soldiers.
Yeah.
He told me he saw him, and I was in the late 90s.
Yeah. And if you go
Okay.
to YouTube, maybe you get the chance.
So she's confirming an Italian man testified, and she's testifying. He testifying. They don't know each other. You can clearly see she's American. You can clearly see he's Ethiopian. He doesn't come off like the type of guy that's doing something for attention. As a matter of fact, it seems to me that he's trying his best to use discretion. Shout out to Discretion TV, by the way. But yeah. So, that's how I feel in my heart, that this man is giving a genuine testimony, and it adds to other testimonies. There's a testimony by Miriam Mingitsu that claims he never killed His Majesty. Right? Let's see if I can pull that up for us real quick. Now, His Majesty's grandson testifies that Miriam Mingitsu treated His Majesty very well. Right? Like that he had reverence for him, as just about every Ethiopian did. And he was a gentleman in a sense to His Majesty. Now, this is a very sacred topic, and I'm not trying to disrespect any family or anybody connected to the Crown Council or to the royal family, but this is also a global concern and something outside of the sphere of only Ethiopia. You get what I'm saying? Because His Majesty was a global figure. He was a messiah to more than just Ethiopians, right? So, that being the case, these testimonies, we have a Indian guy who claimed that he spent time with His Majesty in Britain. Now, it's fascinating. I want you to consider what this man is saying right here on this part, because after that, I'm going to play this Indian guy. Go ahead and play what he says here. You can backtrack now a little bit so they can get a good taste of what he's saying, and then watch the correlation.
Yeah. And if you go to, like, in UK, maybe if you get the chance, you can visit museum in London. You can see Haile Selassie's uniform. When he went to Bredewa, he used to use that uniform. Nowadays, this uniform located in UK Museum.
And in Bristol,
Yeah.
where he stayed.
But
So if he buried, they will bury him with his uniform, with his clothes.
they don't have his ring, the Solomonic ring.
The Solomonic
It's
ring, we believe the Solomonic ring at Mengistu. So this ring came from India, and when new emperor came, they should give the ring for the next emperor. Yeah. So he didn't got also his ring.
All right. So, very, very fascinating little interview there. Most people are already in the comments like, I don't trust him. Who cares? It's a testimony. You ain't never knew Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. Play the next one. The next one, if you type in Indian Guru Haile Selassie alive, should pop up.
Indian Guru.
Oh, that's good.
Let's see. Haile Selassie in India.
Type in Hindu
India.
instead of Indian. And then Guru, Guru.
Mm-hmm.
Forget his name. Been a long time since I sent the video. Let me know if you
Roland Van Reenen TV.
Is it an Indian with long hair? Hold on.
He's got like white hair.
Yes. Haile Selassie alive.
Yes, his name is yeah. So just
Okay.
click the one that says Haile Selassie lives.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Let me get past this ad. All right.
This is where go watch the Rasta Pastas videos if you're watching this and you're really interested, genuinely interested in knowing the truth, because he gives a great breakdown about how thousands of people saw him outside of one of the churches. You know, and
Mhm.
I mean, there's pictures online too now. It's not just you see me. I say it's not just you know rhetoric. It's there's some pictures out there that give credence to the idea that is Mashi live, which, like I said, we're here to prove unequivocally that you can't prove that it's Mashi died. The same way that they couldn't prove that Christ did. This was a major issue for them in Rome during their times. So, yeah, go ahead and press play. Let's see if we can, because this is a long interview, so we're gonna kind of catch points. But go ahead and press play. Let's see where we're at, and then we'll move through it.
Okay.
Great spiritual being called Haile Selassie. He was called the conquering lion of Judah. Conquering lion of Judah. So this was a great opportunity, and I felt very humbled, and I felt very joyous at the same time to have met him. This was in the year 1981. I think I mentioned it in my book. I don't know exactly. Was it 81 or 82? Not 82. At that time I was very young and he was in it. Nearing his 90s. It was a great experience to meet such a spiritual being. He was not an ordinary being, he was a spiritual master. And his work was very difficult because he took on a lot of karma, a lot of hardships for the people of Ethiopia. His souls had to pass through these tribulations, they had to pass through trials to get to the eternal heavens, to get to the eternal space, the space of God. So he was preparing the space of God for not only the people of Ethiopia, but people all over the world.
Sorry. What'd you say, brother?
I was trying to say you just fast forward a little bit.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Just read the writing.
Okay.
There we go, right there. Go back a little, just a taste, and start there.
All right.
Other people that feel that he came back from his body because I met him in 1982 and he was declared dead in 1970, sometime in 1970, right? 1975, and I met him in 1982. That means, like the Christ, he has either risen from the dead. So this is a thing which it's a very spiritual thing. I won't want to go into this. I'm going to leave it to you to contemplate and see what this great master had done. And that he was there and he expressed to have a fire ceremony. That time he was nearing 100. He was well over 90.
So this guy is not.
The question was that when I wrote in my book that I met His Majesty Haile Selassie in 1982, the question was, did anybody challenge you? Because he was already dead in 1975. And or did anybody want to question you on that? So I felt that the Rastafarian community had a great sense of awe, it was surprise, and they did not challenge because they knew and they felt that His Majesty had power to resurrect. You understand? And those Rastas who wanted to challenge did not have the courage, because they knew that that His Majesty, after all, he is from the house of Solomon and of the house of Sheba, and this is a very sacred thing. He is a divine being, and a divine being can do anything. And I think you see.
Response. You guys that are watching, you guys have access to this video. Go look it up. He talks about meeting him in Great Britain at an African convention or something of that nature. I believe that's where he said he met him. Look it up. I can't recall, but I know that there's some major correlations there. Which brings me to another concept, right? There's some that believe that he died and resurrected, and this is not a mainstay belief in Rasta, but there are some Rasta that believe this as well. This man just gave his testimony of what he felt happened, what he said he saw with his eyes. To me, that's another testimony, right? And we have another, countless. We got one from another Rasta man who can talk about how he saw His Majesty ascend. Right now, the world will say, oh, well, he's Rasta. Of course, he would say that. He's lying. My concern is, if you are a Christian and you believe in Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, whom you've never met, who you've never heard, who you've never bore witness to, right? And you're essentially giving your life over, your soul over. That's some deep, right? Right? For these brethren, Hydran, who I believe in, then why would you deny actual video footage, actual testimony you can hear and see with your eyes of people who are so far removed from the concept, right? If you watch our previous videos, we gave you video footage of the cinematographer who happened to be there at the African Union's assembly and bear witness to His Majesty and all of His divinity. And he said out of his mouth he felt like he was God, right? We have the British field marshal who bore witness and testimony to him and his experience. Now, field marshal is the highest military rank on earth. So you want to say that it's not legitimate testimony, we can go to the field marshal, right? Because if what the field marshal say is true, then resurrection is definitely in the cards. And even more than resurrection, he never died. You see me? I say we Ross don't even believe he died. You understand? Or at least I don't. But that's my opinion based on my development, research, and understanding. You see me? I say some may not be there. Some may think there's a resurrection. Some may think he's a king who served honorably and died. However the eye want to see, we're not here to dictate. But we are going to contest the false prophets who claim that you can be Ras without the Bible, right? Who claim that His Majesty didn't, or who claim Christianity is not important. Now, there are some, like I said, so that they can properly understand, who believe in the Holy Pibi, who believe that there's other books that are more pro-African that are the origins, and that they should fire burn to the actual King James version of the Bible, which I don't prescribe to. See me, I say I go to the Garima and what they falsely label as the apocryphal books, right? And so that's a whole nother story. But yeah, the last but not least, so that we can get and move on. If you're looking for more testimonies about His Majesty's ascension or His Majesty being seen after his supposed death, or if you want to witness Miriam Mingitsu's interview when he claimed he never killed him, or you want to go and look at Michael McConan, Prince McConan's testimony on iJosh Stars, where he talks about in length the importance of not degrading or condemning or judging the Rasta or the Pan-African faith-based ideas and concepts, because as they asked him, they said, don't you think it's heretical to say that Jesus Christ is black? And his response was, well, I can call you heretical too. You're sitting here telling me that Cesare Borgia is Christ. And we know that he was probably so far from Christ. She did say. Right. So, those type of times, and I will close in about like 3-4 minutes. Just wanted to kind of make sure that everything I said in the beginning of the video, we accomplished for everybody that may be watching. But the objective perspective is this. If we're in a court of law and you're coming in as what you would call jury, on jury duty, and you have no stake or no dog in this fight, you're not a Rasta, nor are you a nation of gods and earths or Hebrew Israelite or any of the other faith-based ideologies. You're just Joe Blow off the street, or you see me I say Karen or the Empress that we have them. See, whatever background you come from, you would have to acknowledge the fact that there are witness testimonies that confirm that there is much more to the story than lets off. One in which is the doctor that they claimed performed this procedure. Because remember, there was a procedure claimed that he had a prostate procedure done first. And the doctor that they claimed performed this procedure came out publicly and vehemently denied that he ever participated in such a deed, right? And I think that there's some parallels there with prostate surgery and the way that they claimed they found him on the bottom of the toilet. But nevertheless, it just opens the door to people now going into their imaginative realm, putting it, you say something and now they're putting it together in their heads because that's what they want to see. They don't want to see the truth. So that being the case, his testimony is very important. And then you have 3 or 4 different supposed ways of death. You have, I believe, 3 different funerals, right? You have no death certificate. You have no pictures of his body in its mortal state. You found his bones 17 years later, or supposedly found his bones 17 years later. The corrosion and the deterioration of these specimens would have left anybody to be skeptic as to whether or not it was actually him, because they didn't just find the bones like we found the body whole. No, they supposedly found the bones broken up into pieces. So now you piecing things together on top of this makes it much more complicated, right? And because of the political precipitation and transitional government at that time, which left a major power vacuum and questions about the future of Ethiopia, this government was working overtime to do anything to pacify the people, right? Essentially, and also trying to keep them from their own history. As it was, if their history reinvigorated, it could stir in them a desire to have a constitutional monarchy. Imagine if the new incumbent president or head of state pulled up the 1967 Constitution that was revised. You know what I mean? Imagine if he said, what do y'all think? Y'all want to take a vote on this? Was this actually transitioning into something that could have been a policy that's beneficial for Ethiopia or not? Let the people decide. That's not what happened. What happened is they literally did everything they could to destroy His Imperial Majesty's name and legacy and hide it. Like I said, Adolf Hitler's legacy is like imagine being in a mansion and there's a room with caution tape and don't go in here signs, but you walk past and it's strobe lights and they partying in there all night. That's Hitler's history. They claim they hate Hitler's guts, but they love him. They talk about him on every Netflix channel. I learned about Adolf Hitler in 4th grade before I ever learned about Haile Selassie. I ain't even so much as learned about Benito Mussolini, Adolf Hitler's mentor, right? So why you hiding Benito Mussolini's legacy? Oh, I get it. You hiding his legacy because it's going to expose your legacy of not taking all of Africa, of losing to Ethiopia, of losing the colonies that you guys had set your eyes on. All of Europe and imperialist Europe has set their eyes on. So, from an objective perspective, if we're weighing the balance beams and we have evidence versus no evidence, you have no evidence that he's dead. We have a ton of evidence that he's alive. I'll say it again. They have no evidence that he is dead, but we have tons of evidence of His Imperial Majesty being alive. The evidence that they claim they have is not sufficient, and on top of that, some of it is just disgraceful. The way that some of you YouTubers, some of you bloggers, some of you social media ites, some of you influencers, quote unquote, who make a paycheck off of videos and content and other people's stories, should consider that you are profiteering off other people's stories, and consider the people involved who are actually players in those stories and their lives, and how you're affecting their livelihood and their lives. That being the case, and I'll say this and leave it, because like I said, it's a sacred topic, and I'll close with this. The royal family, some have given their testimony that they believe he was killed. Others have given their testimony that they believe Jah lived. And I can pull up both videos. That being the case, and what I'm saying is that no man knows the ways of Almighty, number one. And number two, if they weren't there to bear witness eye to eye on what happened, and they don't have the evidence that we're referencing now, then they really can't say they can give you their opinion. And we have to differentiate opinion from knowing. And we don't discredit opinion either. From an objective perspective, all opinions are contemplated on and weighed in. So we've heard some of the royal family make suggestions in direct statements of His Imperial Majesty transpiring, transitioning to the eternal realm. But once again, those statements are their perspectives. We respect their perspectives. We take them into consideration, but we weigh the facts. As God gave us a brain, a mind, and a heart of our own, and gave us our own ability to come to conclusions, right? And this is something fascinating, because His Majesty's grandson in the interview was specifically saying that His Majesty would ask him a ton of questions and play devil's advocate. And this was so that he could foster individual and free thinking from his grandson, right? A mind of his own. We've got a mind of our own. So go to hell if you think what you're saying is wrong. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Think with reason. Pray and meditate on these things as their sacred topics. Trust in the divine plan of Almighty, because the last and most important thing I can say is whether His Imperial Majesty died that day, or whether he died and resurrected that day, or whether he never died at all, doesn't matter in the whole scope of things when we still look at the fruit that His Imperial Majesty bore while he was on the Solomonic dynasty, right? Which he still is technically, on the throne, because nobody, no transition. That's why he said we'll be replaced by the oncoming generation, and the Crown Council has moved into protocols where in which they are an interregnum, and Prince Eremias is serving as president and executor of the state, and as we know, Zara Yaqub, the head of the Crown Council. So he is technically fulfilling his prophecy that he's replaced by the oncoming generation, and we salute to the Crown. We follow His Imperial Majesty's ways. We trust in Jah. The opinion is yours, right? But the facts is ours, and the truth is the Lord's. See me, I say, let every man be a liar, and let Jah Almighty be true. Jah Rastafari, give thanks for everybody that tuned in today. We're looking forward to doing more videos with the Idrin, with the Empresses. Please follow, share, like, and subscribe. If you want to donate, what's the page?
The GoFundMe.
The GoFundMe is for
for Keepers of the Light GoFundMe. You know, whenever we get a chance and start up any fundraisers to just raise funds, you know, that'll be accessible to anybody who wants to donate. So
right now we have a brother out there in Ethiopia. We would love to get him a vehicle. We also have our own business, Global Diasporan Education and Entertainment Network LLC, and we desire to teach language classes. We desire to teach we desire to teach what we call herbology. We desire to teach survival skills in classes, cultural classes, and we desire to interconnect you with the infrastructure of Rastafari. That's the Ethiopian World Federation, the Ethiopian World Federation political party in Jamaica, the African Union, Shashimani eventually, and beyond. So there's layers to this Rastafari. If y'all got any questions, concerns, or reservations, hit us up in the back channel, or you can email us at keepersofthelight@gmail.com. Please follow all our social media handles as well. Keepers of the Light, Facebook, Keepers of the Light, and it's just like it sounds, just like it's spelled with proper English. Keepers of the Light on Facebook, Instagram, and X, as well as TikTok. So give thanks, God bless, Rastafari, Selassie. Aye.